Coflan. I am joining you today from Mid-Coast, Maine. I am really excited to talk to you today about my favorite artist, David Lynch, and his role in the archetype of the magician and his work as a sort of way of continuing that tradition, and how his films really act as a way for us to delve into other worlds that we might not be aware of or sort of think about in our day-to-day lives. One of the things that I'm the most interested in, just in general, is this idea of cinema and how it can help us to transcend or to journey. My work at Goddard College in Vermont was about horror films as a way of underworld journeying, and even though David Lynch isn't typically or traditionally considered a horror director, there's absolutely a lot of those aspects in his work, this sort of dream world over nightmarish sort of world that we're invited to journey into with him, these worlds that he's created with the help of the cast and crew already involved, and how they are how the films are there for us as an invitation for us to really journey there with them. Bring up my presentation here. So I would love to be able to look at each of his works individually and really dive into them. Of course, that would take a very long time, so I won't be able to do that, but hopefully I can just do just something that really touches on some of the key themes. Hopefully some of you are at least familiar with some of his films. On his work, Twin Peaks, I think, is a very, this cultural phenomenon. So, yeah, if you haven't seen a lot of his films or investigated him, I would absolutely encourage you to do that, because he is, I think, brilliant and fascinating, and such an important filmmaker and artist. There it is. Great. The magician longs to see is a fragment of a poem that appears in Twin Peaks. There's the bit of paper with this cryptic message on it that's found next to the body of Laura Palmer, or in the train car where her body had been, where she had been killed. And this just leads us into this world of mysteries, I think, which is a really important part of not just the world of Twin Peaks, and also just the world of David Lynch in general. So this image and this quote is from his film Mulholland Drive, one of my favorite films by him, and I think that it really exemplifies what I'm going to be talking about. There's a sort of the first half of the film, you're sort of following along, you think that one thing's happening, and then there's this scene here in a theater where there's a magician character, and then after that the film takes a very different turn that's still being talked about. There's sort of accepted, I think, kind of idea of what the film means, what the first half means, what the second part means. And I don't want to say exactly what that is, because of course I don't want to talk with any certainty about what David Lynch films mean, because that's, I think, really missing the point of his films. If you talk about it as, this is what this means, this is what that means, and there you go. That's one of the unique pieces about his work, is the way that it really challenges us to keep questioning what we've seen, what we experienced. I just wanted to look here at this quote. I think that even though it says the magician here, what we really could be looking at is the artist, what the artist's power is in our society. Sorry about that noise. My cat has decided that right now is the best time to start chasing something. I don't know what it is. But, yeah, so just this piece here specifically, the magician has power to reveal the fundamental reality that underlies all. He represents a wonder-working aspect of ourselves which can divine the hidden well springs of life and open them up for creative use. Which, and again, it says the magician, but that to me is a very key role of the artist in our society. And then this idea of revelation, that you're sort of course, not revealing all of your secrets or saying what the one truth is, but it's sort of helping us to discover things through the work, through it's a magician, through their show, through their sleight of hand, through their ceremonial workings. So this further just continuing this idea of the magician as an artist. This idea of them as somebody who travels between realms is a really key piece, I think, who's sort of the body is a conduit and antenna of vibrations from other dimensions. And that's something that I think is a key piece of any sort of spiritual figure in mythology or in our culture, but also the role of the artist and the filmmaker, somebody like David Lynch who really dives into something hidden either in themselves or in society or both, I would say, and brings that back up and translates that to us so that we can also engage with that idea in those sort of mysteries and what's hidden in our own lives, in our own worlds, in ourselves. So here I just have another quote. Just this idea of the importance of the audience is something I really want to just touch on before we get much further in. Thinking of stage magicians, or sort of sideshow magicians or ceremonial magicians, that there's this idea of the audience as being a really active part of that. And thinking of any shows that I've been to, there's a definite energy exchange between the performer and the audience. And even though the world of film, of course, we're sitting either in a theater or we're sitting in our houses watching a piece on our TVs, there's still an energy exchange and this sort of exchange of ideas, I think. So watching a film, you might just be in your room, but it's still you're having thoughts and reactions and emotional responses to what you're seeing. Hopefully, if they've done their job. But just the idea of the audience is a very key piece of this exchange. So it's another sort of topic and figure that I, again, would really love to look into more. I just wanted to make sure to touch on this before we get further. Just the role of the illusionist in sort of the creation of film, looking at Georges Méliès, and he was this very revolutionary artist. He's an illusionist who ended up using film as a way to kind of just build on this idea of illusion, and he was this revolutionary in sort of special effects work and editing, and realizing that you could connect ideas and have a narrative, kind of emotional sort of connection through editing, which was absolutely just huge. And I'm fascinated by this idea of the sort of stage magicians or illusionists who grew to accept the idea of cinema and saw the potential there to really further their art and their craft. Okay, so just a few images here of David Lynch, either working on his films or working in his art studio. He was initially a painter. There he goes. So he started off as a painter. He still is a painter. His work is, absolutely stunning and very physically done. If you watch videos of him painting, it's just lots of very hands-on, sort of smearing this idea of sort of just manipulating the paint and the canvas until whatever image he thinks already exists within the canvas just comes to life. And I think that's something he does with film. And I love this quote here from him about cinema as a language. He's somebody that has been pretty vocal, ironically, about the limitations of language. And just the idea of cinema as something that can convey things that other mediums can't necessarily. He's saying it's a magical medium, and he's talked about just the moving image combined with sound, combined with just everything that goes into making a film, is a really unique and just special way of creating an emotional resonance in the audience. But here, this is another key piece, and something that he says a lot. I can find a lot of different quotes as being about strange worlds that you create and that you can't go into. They don't exist until you create them. And so it's this idea of manifesting the worlds that he is so known for. There's always this feeling of the everyday world. Think of something like Blue Velvet. It's this very picturesque, suburban sort of environment that the film starts off in. But then underneath that is something very dark. And it's, I think one of the characters in the film says that this is something that's always been there. He's just seeing it now. And I think that's something that David Lynch is really, really good at expressing. He's sort of that underneath the everyday and seemingly mundane, there's a lot. There's a huge wellspring of stuff going on, often dark, which I think is just one of my favorite themes, the idea of beautiful, seemingly picturesque, perfect things really being a mask for the things that we don't want to look at. I just have a few images here of some of his early films. This is still from his, I think this is his first technical film, 6 Men Getting Sick 6 Times. This came about from him wanting to create what he thought is a moving painting. There was a painting he had been looking at when he was a student, and he got this feeling of not that he thought he saw the image moving, but he had this idea in his mind's eye of the image moving and of there being this sound, this kind of like windy ambient sound, and this kind of sparked an idea in him of wanting to create a painting that moved. And so this short film, I love it, absolutely look it up. And this is still from The Alphabet, one of his other early films, which is sort of traditionally accepted as being representative of his distrust of language and the idea of too much rational knowledge not being good for us. It's this very nightmarish short that came about from his niece, I believe, having a nightmare and sort of reciting the alphabet in her sleep. So I just wanted to look at something we sort of talked about earlier, just this idea of how he gets ideas. Because I think people like to ask artists that. So where did that come from? Where did you get that idea? And something that I think is really interesting about David Lynch is the way that little things will spark something. It's like he, sometimes it's meditation, and he sort of can dig into this wellspring. Also, a lot of the times it's just a fragment of something he just catches it. And so this idea of the song Blue Velvet, the Bobby Vinton song, just that he heard it at some point later on in his life, and that it just conjured up these images, these sort of disparate images of red lips, the black-green lawns of a neighborhood that's sort of entering the twilight hour of the day, so everything's dark. You saw a car, or the idea of a car, and just from there, the film really took flight and came to life. And I feel like that's about as close to magic as I think you can really, I don't know, it's so, just this idea of something sparking in your mind, and then you get this feeling that you need to trust that, and that's something he's really invested in, is the idea of trusting ideas and trusting that intuitive sense. So here, just been talking some more about dreaming. His films are often referred to as using dream logic. It doesn't necessarily mean that he gets his ideas from the dreams that you get when you're asleep. He talks a lot more about the idea of daydreaming. And if his films use dream logic, it sort of more refers to just the way that dreams work, where you sort of move through them fluidly. Things might not make sense, there's weird transitions, there's weird things that while you're dreaming they make sense, but when you think about it later, no, that doesn't make any kind of sense. But yeah, it's just the way you sort of move through his films is in that kind of state. You could try to give yourself up to that idea, but that a lot of his ideas come from this important aspect of daydreaming, which I think is something that is really important just for humans in general. It's good to daydream, and I think for him especially that has been absolutely key in developing his work. So the idea of mysteries, of course, is a big part of, I would say, magic of magicians, and also in the work of David Lynch. Of course, mysteries. He works with the neo-noir genre pretty heavily. So of course that needs a mystery, sort of that's how you get into the story. Twin Peaks was originally going to be, of course, a murder mystery, but Mark Ross didn't have the intention of actually solving that mystery. It was just meant to be a way into this community and a way of diving into more mysteries. And so I think that's really interesting. Of course, the network pressured them to wrap it up, and so that's history there, I suppose. So we just have an image on the left from Blue Velvet with the character Jeffrey, who sees himself as a detective and very voyeuristic, and it ends up getting in over his head, of course. And on the right here is an image from Lost Highway. And this scene here is where they're watching a tape that has been left on their doorstep, and it's just a recording of their house. And it starts off weird enough, and then later on they get another tape that's from inside their house while they're sleeping. And then the movie just gets so fantastically weird, and it's very, it's not say dreamlike, but that feels like an oversimplification. But just mysteries upon mysteries upon mysteries, which I think is a really fantastic part of his work. So here just, the fact that mysteries aren't just present in his films, they're also a big part of how he talks about his films or doesn't talk about them. He's often asked what things mean, and he's very, I don't want to say reluctant, I mean, he just doesn't want to talk about that, because he sees that as diminishing the power of what there is, that we don't need to know rationally what his idea of the film was, that if we know this is what he thinks it means, then that kind of shuts every other possibility down, and that's not something that he at all wants to do. So just from talking about that a little bit more, and this idea of having there be fragments and leaving some of the work up to the audience to sort of fill in, and that creates that, again, that idea of the audience as being an active participant in the work, that if we're continuing to dream and fill in those blanks and sort of expand upon that in our own unique way, that's what he wants. That's what the audience should be doing, is engaging with it in that kind of way. Just here is out of here. So just another quote of him talking about the Eraserhead baby. People always want to know how that was made, who made it, and he absolutely will not say, and I hope he never does say, I don't think he will, because it's just this idea that we don't need to know. It's just going to take away the magic of that creation, that it exists within the film. This is a figure in the film that's all, I'm basically just treating it like this is that's the Eraserhead baby. We don't need to know how it was made. If we know that it's a puppet, or if we know that it's whatever else it might be, that, like, how would that help with our understanding of the film? It would just kind of take away from something. So just looking here again at some Mulholland Drive, which is a film that a lot of people have talked about what it means, what's happening narratively in the film. And him saying that, he thinks that people do know, that there's a sense that we have more intuition than we maybe acknowledge or that we recognize. And telling them, robs them of the joy of thinking it through and feeling it through and coming to a conclusion. And I think the key words there, feeling it through, I think is a big piece here, that it's not just rational thinking, it's having an emotional response to what we've seen. want to wrap up here. Just one of his paintings, looks like charcoal pieces, but yes, one of his other works. So I just wanted to sort of rehash there, just this idea of the sort of sense of wonder that we're meant to get from a magician, from an artist. There's that's something that I don't think we have access to in a lot of our day-to-day lives. We're sort of too busy, we just want to consume something and be done with it. And I think it's really important to sort of revert in a way to that sort of sense of wonder and sort of childlike, whatever you want to call it, sort of fears or, sense of mystery. And David Lynch is definitely an artist who does that. Thank you all so much. Hope you're having a great day at the conference. I wish I could be there in person. But yeah, looking forward to talking to you all and the question and answers.
I want to ask her a question.
Of course. I mean, you are here, right?
But she's here.
Hello. I'm in the room.
Hello.
Let me just, I can make you huge as well, which will be exciting for everyone. There we go.
Hey.
Okay.
Hello,
So you want to ask
everybody.
your question?
I have a burning question, and I'm sorry, just because ever since I knew you were going to be here, but it may be more of a comment than a question. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I live here in England now. And for me, Mulholland Drive captures the feeling of LA like nothing else I have ever. LA's everywhere. I see it everywhere. I see, because it's the most filmed place in the world, probably because of Hollywood. But so, although there's a dream world, he does, for me, in Mulholland Drive, capture the feeling of a city and the place of my birth like nothing else. It's almost like I'm more there when I see his film than I'm actually there in real life. And I'm just sharing that because I wondered what your thoughts were on, whilst it's a dream world, it's also an enhanced experience of a real place. That's how it is for me. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I love that so much. I've never been to LA. Hopefully someday.
Oh, you must go.
To move there. But I think that's a really interesting point. The idea of the enhanced sort of world. So yeah, I think that really it does tie in with how he sees things. There's sort of like there is this very heightened sense. Like just thinking of a Blue Velvet again. Just the initial scene is such just saturated colors. The white picket fence, the red roses, the really blue sky, and so it's sort of I think of that as like just the world that we live in, but looking at it a little bit differently and through that kind of magical sense. And yeah, absolutely, just capturing the essence of a place, I think, is something that's really interesting about what he does.
Your cast decided to make an appearance. Thank you. I just wanted to share that because that's been in my brain ever since I saw the movie, and it just blew me away. So anyway,
Can I just, as chair, use my free question? You made you commented, I think, about not necessarily wanting to make an interpretation of Lynch. Like obviously, with regards to Lynch offering any comment, that would be the authoritative interpretation, and there's very good reason to hold back from that. But isn't the audience participation aspect, because there's obviously a creative element in the interpretive act at all. So I was just interested in hearing you expand a little bit about like your thoughts about the audience's position, or whether or not interpretation should or shouldn't be applied, or maybe I understood wrongly.
Oh, sure. No, that's, I think that's, I think the way I think of it is just sort of this communal sort of sharing of ideas of what it might mean, and that sort of can build a bigger sense of it, or maybe that because there's so many different interpretations, and of course Twin Peaks has all these different fan theories, and so I think that that's sort of a thing that I'm really interested in, is just the collective interpretations. I think it's, I don't know if I'm on the right track answering your question.
No, right. So you sort of said that you see value in sort of a collective approach to it rather than a...
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Are there any other questions whilst we have this radical technology?
So I've got another question, but if anybody else wants to go first, I don't.
I'm interested in knowing what you know of David Lynch's personal practices. I know he's TM guy, isn't he? Is
Yeah,
that
he's
it?
TM.
Big time.
Is that his?
Do you know of any other esoteric practices, I think was the question?
Oh, okay. So I actually don't know. I know he talks about TM a lot. A lot of what I sort of did in preparation for this video was listening to him speaking to that at universities, and he's a really big proponent of TM. I'm not sure about other esoteric practices. I know Mark Frost is really interested in different practices, and that influence ends up in Twin Peaks a lot. There's a lot more, I guess, specific kind of esoteric ideas and occult themes and different things. But I'm not sure about Lynch. I think that the TM is a really, I think, one of the key pieces for him, as far as I know, but I should definitely read more about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have
Do you mind if I have one more?
We round it up.
Okay, well, we're running out of time. Just to say, by the way, TM is a really, really big thing in LA. They've got a whole dedicated places. I'm just going to say, going back to him creating a world, I understand that he does a lot of, the soundtrack is extremely important to him, and he does a lot himself. And I just wondered if you had any comments, Rob, because to me that's not always the case with directors. Quite often they're kind of looking at that visual. I just wondered if there was anything you could share on your work into research into that, or just because I think that's quite an interesting element for David Lynch in particular.
I think it's quite common with auteurs, isn't it? But yeah.
But he's really, he's super accurate about exactly what he wants, and he has some ways of doing things I think that are quite unique. Just wondered if you had any comments to make.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of my favorite things about him, because I know that music and sound for me is, I've been realizing more and more how important that is for me in watching a film. The wrong sound or the wrong song can really detract from the scene, but then the right music and the right sound can really just add to it and create this heightened, this heightened environment. I know he's done music, he's talked about that a little bit, but that he needs like technicians and people to help him out. I heard this great quote from him during one of his talks, and they asked him if he was a musician and a singer. He said, I'm not a musician and I'm not a singer, but I do make music and I do sing, which I think is such a Lynch quote. Such a Lynch thing to say, like classic Lynch. But he works really closely with Angelo Badalamenti, and they have this.
Oh no!
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. He'll like sit with Angelo and sort of try to convey this idea of what he has in his mind's eye, like the best he can, and then Angelo will work on it. And he'll say, no, more of he'll just kind of give these more emotional terms and be like, no, and more of that, and then together they end up creating these masterpieces of sound. I don't know if that answers.
It's just
your
interesting
question.
Insight. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you so much. We're running into lunchtime now, so we'll probably leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us. You couldn't be more picturesque in that.
Yeah.
Still beautifully framed. Like, look at that. Archetypal, familiar. Okay. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.